when a gunner fought through hell to save a friend, the heroic story of Andrew Minarski and Pat Brophy. On the night of June 12, 1944, amidst the chaos of World War II's air battles over northern France, a story of extraordinary bravery unfolded aboard a Royal Canadian Air Force, RAF, Lancaster bomber. This is the story of Officer Andrew Minarski, a mid-upper turret gunner, and his best friend, Pat Brophy, the tail gunner of Lancaster KB-726. Their courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable bond in the face of death have become legendary, earning Minarski the Victoria Cross posthumously. Today, we revisit their harrowing mission, the fight for survival, and the legacy of heroism that continues to inspire. The Midnight Raid, setting the stage. In the dark hours between June 12 and June 13, 1944, over 600 Allied bombers soared towards northern France, aiming to cripple German rail yards and disrupt enemy logistics. Among them was Lancaster KB-726 from the 419th Squadron of the RAF, piloted by 22-year-old Arthur Debrain and crewed by men like Andrew Minarski and Pat Brophy, both only 22 years old. As the bombers advanced, the German defenses sprang to life. Powerful searchlights swept the night sky, locking onto Allied aircraft and exposing them to deadly night fighters. From his vantage point in the mid-upper turret, Minarski saw the eerie beams snapping across the darkness, illuminating fellow Lancasters that soon fell in flames. The grim reality of the mission was clear: many would not make it home. The first encounter, a deadly night fighter attack. Debrain's Lancaster was targeted soon after, with searchlights locking onto KB-726. The pilot skillfully evaded the initial spotlight cone with a corkscrew maneuver, climbing through clouds and temporarily escaping detection. But the danger was far from over. A German Junkers Ju-88 night fighter, specially equipped for deadly attacks, drifted towards the bomber. Pat Brophy, regaining his night vision in the tail turret, spotted the Ju-88 approaching from below and to the right. He fired tracer rounds in an attempt to repel the attacker. However, the Ju-88's design allowed it to fire upward from its underbelly cannons, outside the Lancaster's firing arcs, delivering devastating blows without retaliation. The Lancaster was hit hard. Shells tore through the left wing, destroying engines and puncturing fuel tanks. A fireball erupted, igniting leaking fuel and engulfing the plane in flames. The fuselage was riddled with shrapnel, cutting electrical wires and bursting hydraulic lines, turning the inside of the aircraft into a deadly inferno. Fighting for control and survival. With the left engines destroyed and the aircraft pulling violently to one side, Debrain battled to maintain control. The gauges went dark and the bomber's flight became precarious. Recognizing the dire situation, the pilot ordered the crew to bail out immediately. The bailout signal was sent to the men in the turrets, but communication was breaking down. While most crew members prepared to jump, Brophy found himself trapped. His intercom was dead, cutting him off from updates. Flames were rapidly consuming the fuselage, threatening his parachute hanging nearby. Worse, the turret's hydraulic system had failed, jamming the doors and leaving Brophy stuck without his chute. Desperate, Brophy managed to pry open one turret door just enough to reach his parachute and clip it onto himself. He attempted to rotate the turret manually with a hand crank to line up the exit, but the crank snapped in his hands. Trapped in the turret, with flames closing in, Brophy faced a terrifying fate. Andrew Minarski's courageous rescue attempt. Meanwhile, Andrew Minarski had bailed out of the top turret and was preparing to escape the burning bomber. But as he glanced back, he saw Brophy struggling, trapped in the rear turret amid the inferno. Without hesitation, Minarski grabbed an axe and plunged into the flames, crawling through the narrow tail section to reach his friend. The heat was unbearable. Minarski's flight suit caught fire, his legs were burned, and pain seared through his body. Yet he pressed on, determined to save Brophy. Reaching the turret, Minarski used the axe and his bare hands to try to pry the turret doors open, willing the mechanism to turn despite the damage and fire. Brophy, witnessing his friend's selfless bravery, pleaded with Minarski to escape. But Minarski refused to leave without him. Locked in a heartrending moment, the two friends exchanged a final, tearful look. Mynarski, his body engulfed in flames, saluted Brophy and whispered the words they had shared countless times before, "Good night, sir." Then he leapt into the night, his parachute partially collapsing as flames caught it, dooming his descent. The aftermath: survival and loss. DeBrain, the pilot, watched the inferno consume his plane as he too parachuted to safety. Unbeknownst to him, Brophy remained trapped inside the wreckage after the Lancaster crashed violently into a French forest. The impact was so severe that it ripped the rear turret from the aircraft, throwing Brophy to the ground. Though injured and unconscious at first, Brophy eventually regained consciousness amidst the eerie stillness of the burning forest. Miraculously, he survived the crash and the inferno. But he was deep in enemy territory, and his ordeal was far from over. French resistance fighters found Brophy and aided him in evading capture for over 2 months until Allied forces liberated the area. During this time, Brophy carried the heavy burden of guilt for surviving while his best friend, Mynarski, had perished. Determined to honor Mynarski's sacrifice, Brophy dedicated himself to sharing the story of his friend's courage with the world. The legacy of Andrew Mynarski, a Victoria Cross hero. Andrew Mynarski's heroic attempt to save Pat Brophy, despite the overwhelming odds and mortal danger, was recognized with the highest military honor, the Victoria Cross. This medal is awarded for valor in the presence of the enemy and is a testament to Mynarski's extraordinary bravery and selflessness. The story of Mynarski and Brophy is one of many that highlight the incredible courage of Lancaster crews during World War II. These men faced relentless threats from enemy fighters, anti-aircraft fire, and the harsh conditions of night bombing raids. Their sacrifices contributed significantly to the Allied war effort and the eventual liberation of Europe. Understanding the role of the Lancaster bomber and its crews. The Avro Lancaster was a key asset in the Allied bombing campaign. Its large payload capacity, range, and defensive armament made it a formidable opponent in the night skies. However, the crews operating these aircraft faced constant danger from flak and enemy night fighters like the Junkers Ju-88. Gunners like Mynarski and Brophy were the last line of defense, tasked with protecting the bomber from attacks that could come from any direction. Their vigilance, skill, and courage were critical to the survival of the crew and the success of their missions. Remembering the human cost of war. The story of Andrew Mynarski and Pat Brophy reminds us of the human cost behind every mission and every medal. It's a tale of friendship, sacrifice, and the will to protect one another even in the face of certain death. While history often focuses on strategies and outcomes, stories like these bring to light the personal bravery and tragedy experienced by individuals. Mynarski's final act of heroism is a powerful example of how courage can shine brightest in our darkest moments. Other incredible stories of Lancaster bravery. The bravery displayed aboard KB-726 is far from unique. Many Lancaster crews faced near-impossible odds and performed acts of heroism under fire. For example, there are accounts of airmen who went outside the plane mid-flight to extinguish fires, risking their lives to keep their crews safe. These stories continue to inspire and remind us of the resilience and dedication of those who served in Bomber Command during World War II. Conclusion. The night of June 12, 1944, aboard Lancaster KB-726 was a crucible of courage and sacrifice. Officer Andrew Mynarski's selfless attempt to rescue Pat Brophy, despite the raging inferno consuming their aircraft, embodies the spirit of heroism that defined the air war over Europe. Brophy's survival and determination to tell Mynarski's story ensured that this chapter of World War II would not be forgotten. Mynarski's Victoria Cross stands as a lasting tribute to the ultimate sacrifice made by so many during the conflict. As we remember these men, let us honor their bravery and reflect on the bonds forged in the most harrowing circumstances. Their legacy lives on not only in medals and history books but in the stories passed down through generations.